Finance, one of the key architects of the budget. And thank you very much, sir, for being with us. The markets did react very sharply when the LTCG was introduced. But of course, sanity has now returned. I do have a question to begin with you on fiscal deficit. While you have gone to levels of 3.5% this year, people are worried about 3.3% for next year. So let's get fiscal deficit out of the way. And then my colleague Maithili Busnurmat comes in with the revenue deficit.
So what is your worry? 3.3
markets
is not realistic or what?
No, it is realistic. But what about fiscal prudence? What about fiscal discipline? People are anticipating you will do 3% by next year.
This is, I think, fiscal prudence. You there were extraordinary circumstances this year, which required some little pause to take. And that was maintained at 3.5% this year, which is in fact equal to what last year. If you compare the fiscal deficits of a couple of years back, before this government took over, this government has consistently brought it down from 4.4% to 3.5% now. Earlier it used to be in the range of 5 to 6 or even more. So it is a very strong manifestation of the fiscal prudence. The government has also decided now to amend the FRBM Act to put a statutory limit on the debt and the liabilities which the government can take, and also on bringing fiscal deficit down to 3% statutorily by 2021. So I think this shows complete commitment of the government to fiscal prudence.
With you that there could be two opinions as far as fiscal deficit is concerned. The slippage is small, and provided you spend it on the right things, one could argue that it can crowd in private investment. But there can be no disagreement that revenue deficit an absolute no. And there the slippage is much more dramatic. From 1.9 you've gone up to 2.6. And the next year's budgeted estimate is even more than what the actuals were in 16-17. So what justification can there be for slipping so badly on the revenue deficit, which is all consumption expenditure?
Let me tell you our sense. I think this perception that the revenue deficit is bad, I don't think that's a very sound perception. What do we incur the revenue expenditure on? We incur expenditures on health, education, social protection as revenue expenditure. So those are also very valuable kind of expenditures, which are very good from the long term. So I don't think we see capital expenditure as necessarily good and revenue expenditure as necessarily bad. So these two expenditures, both providing a service in a school which is run today is as important as building a school. So the government has very consciously decided to do away any preference for this side. So that's what is reflected. What we are worried, and we should be rightly worried, is what is the government's overall take from the market, from the savings, and that's what is there in the fiscal deficit. So revenue deficit we are not very much worried about.
A little bit of a less skeptical journalist and say, okay, I might grant you that, but that's what the effective revenue deficit is supposed to be. You remove all those good expenses, as it were, and then get what the actual deficit is, and there your effective revenue deficit is also much higher. So what justification can there be for that, even if I buy your argument about spending on health and education being valid expenses?
See, this distinction between revenue expenditure and effective revenue expenditure is also to some extent artificial. This is the last time we are projecting these numbers separately. The FRBM committee had also recommended that there is no need for these kind of separate distinctions to be made, and we are doing away with that. We propose to do away with that. And that artificial distinction, I don't think again is very sound.
I have a quick question on divestment. You've overshot your targets this year. Why are you being conservative for next year? Why are you keeping targets at just about 85,000 crore rupees? You could have gone more because you're talking about listing and merger of these three big PSUs as far as insurance is concerned. You're talking about an Air India privatization. Why are you being conservative with your divestment target?
I'm happy now you take 80,000 crore target as conservative. We in this country have not done more than 20,000 crores on average for last many years. This year, our original target was 72,500. The government did 1 lakh crore. Planning for 80,000 crores next year is really ambitious, very good. Of course, as the government delivered this year, next year also, we should try to do better, and if the markets cooperate, we might. But 80,000 crore target is quite ambitious.
Ambitious target. We are only talking you to be more ambitious because you've done 1 lakh crore rupee this year. But before we wrap, a quick question on the RBI dividend. You are budgeting for 54,800 crore rupees next year. What about this year? Has any special dividend been budgeted for in your arithmetic so far?
We do have budgeted for some dividend to flow this year also.
Okay,
dividends and RBI surplus is less than what you had in 2016-17. So does it seem as if you don't expect much from the RBI next year also? And also that despite the recapitalization package, you don't expect banks, contrary to what the government has been saying, to perform much better?
See, the banks will take some time to turn around. We do expect the banks to perform better next year, and that there is the projection is much higher than what it was done this year. Of course, it is less than the historical expectation of dividends from the banks. So we expect the turnaround to come around, and if they do really well, then there might be a revision of the target from the bank's dividend.
Very, very much, Mr. Garg, for joining us right here on ET Now with your perspective. It's always good to understand budget from the architects. We are chatting later this evening and we'll get more questions your way. Thank you very much for keeping your date with ET Now.